The mood tracker is basically when we just take the temperature of the fan base, and this one's really easy, although I regret to inform you, Jesse came up with the actual phrase. The mood for Ohio State is sick of silver. What a first world problem to be able to suffer from. There's literally only one way to get better than silver, and Michigan's had it the last 3 years. So they got to do something about that, but the fan base is who we're talking about here. Fan base, I think, is being mischaracterized nationally a little bit, and I'll get to that in a second. But you got to be careful with the way you talk about this whole thing. I think sometimes there is a tendency that when you've gotten close repeatedly to where you want to be, that's like the starting point. It's just assumed that we're going to get at least this far next year. And when we were up in Columbus last week, I want to say it was, I sat down with Ryan Day. We had him on the show. We actually talked about that very thing.
There's a train of thought out there sometimes in like preview magazine culture that if you came really close the year before, people speak as if that's where you're starting the next year, right, and you just got to take that one final step. In reality, it's like you try and climb Everest and you get 500 feet from the summit, don't make it. You got to start over from base camp the next year. So I walk around this building like I certainly don't sense any entitlement or anything like that whatsoever. But how hard is it to make sure guys understand last year's team was last year's team? Right. This year's team, you guys could go 8-4. Forget about starting as an 11-win team.
The easy thing to do is, well, let me just fast forward and get all the way to the end of the next season. It doesn't work that way. You have to build. And I think now more than ever, the teams that build that foundation the right way with fundamentals, with techniques, find their identity and get really good at it, are going to be the ones that are going to be best at the end of the season. The reason I say that is, in the past when you got into the playoff system, you had about a month to prepare for that bowl game. And I always felt like, if you gave me a month, I could really go to work. I could really focus on, give me a couple weeks to really dive into this schematically. We can practice the heck out of it. I remember going into the Georgia game a couple years ago. We had like 1,400 snaps going into that game in the bowl practice.
Yeah.
And now that's not going to be the case. It's more like the NFL playoffs. You get the kind of the wild card week, but those games are going to keep coming fast. And so you have to make sure you're building the foundation the right way and building momentum with your team, because at the end, the team that has the best fundamentals, the best techniques, knows who they are, is going to win and sustain in the playoffs.
So there's that. Beyond all that, though, I think a lot of people are looking at Ohio State and the transfer portal guys they added, and you should be, because they're studs. But the guys they convinced to come back, I think is the biggest story in the Big Ten this year. JTT, Jack Sawyer, Travion Henderson, like Emeka Egbuka, Ward, a lot of those guys could have had their naming or having their name called in the NFL draft this past week, and they all came back. And it's a recipe to win a championship. It's not a prediction. That's a recipe. That's a foundation that you need to win a championship. Then you add in the transfer portal guys on top of that. But, dude, the difference, at least what I picked up on from what the public talking point is about Ohio State versus what they talk about in the building there is they're happy to have the transfer portal guys. But, dude, those guys coming back is monumental. They know it. That's why it's all in for 2024. I mean, as all in as a major program can be, they are for 2024. Now, I said I thought the fan base was being mischaracterized a little bit a second ago. What I mean by that is more and more as the season approaches, you're going to hear things like, oh, Ohio State fans have Ryan Day on the hot seat. Oh, if he loses to Michigan again, they're going to run him out of town. Fair enough. Say whatever you want to. Here's what I'd ask. Find me the Ohio State fans who are saying that. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying we may be making a mountain out of a molehill a little bit in terms of letting the fringe minority opinion carry the day in lieu of the overwhelming consensus up there, which is we got one of the best coaches in the country. We've come close. We're going to tee it up and try it again this year, but we're not going to go full 5-alarm freak out and call for the head of an 11-1 coach if that's how our season goes. So I'm asking any Ohio State fans who legitimately feel like that, who feel that no matter what else is accomplished, if we fall short of a title this year or fall short of beating Michigan, probably still make the playoffs, and then whatever happens, if that goes down this year, he ought to be out of a job. show yourselves to me. I really want to see how many people feel that way. 'Cause I have a feeling the sample size is a lot smaller than we're being led to believe.